Tom Daniels Show.
You're listening to the Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. I want to start with a confession. It's not the kind that gets easier to say the more you say it, so I'm just going to go right ahead with it here. I like Nickelback. All right, go ahead, get it out of your system. I've said that sentence out loud to rooms full of college students, and I want to describe what happens on their faces. It's not disagreement. Exactly. Disagreement I could work with. What I see is closer to alarm, like I've just admitted to keeping something illegal in my car. And here's the part that should bother you as much as it bothers me. I have never, not once, not in over a decade of asking, met a single person who could tell me why they hate Nickelback. It's not a song, not a chord, not a lyric, not a production choice, nothing musical at all. Just kind of an inherited hatred, passed down like a family recipe that nobody really remembers the reason for. So today's show is not really about Nickelback. Nickelback is just the cleanest crime scene I've got. Today is about a question that's been sitting on me for 42 years of teaching music to people of every age. Where does musical taste actually come from, and what's really driving it? So let's start with teenagers, because they show you the mechanism at full volume before adulthood teaches everybody to be a little quieter about it. If you tell a teenager that you disagree with them about, say, long division, nothing happens. Math doesn't carry any kind of a passport. But tell a teenager you don't like their favorite band, and boy, something else entirely lights up in that junior high cafeteria. Why does music get treated like a referendum on your character when a kid's opinion on geometry never does? Well, here's my working theory. Music doesn't just sit outside a person the way a fact does. It gets worn like clothing. And that happens at the exact age when a person is trying on identities in public for the very first time with the stakes turned all the way up. So when a teenager challenges another teenager's taste, they're rarely disagreeing about the actual sound. They're threatening the self. That's why it escalates the way it does. That's why the wrath is so disproportionate to the crime. Nobody's actually angry about a chord progression. They're defending who they've decided to be. And I've watched this in elementary classrooms too. If you want to know how early it starts, 6-year-olds don't do it about bands, but they do it about which cartoon theme song is the good one. Same rule, smaller stakes, but the same fire in their eyes. Now, here's where it gets more interesting than schoolyard politics, because this doesn't just stop because people grow up. It just gets better dressed. Think about how we usually decide who the expert in the room is. It's rarely the person who says the nicest things and hands out compliments. It's always the person who can spot what's wrong. A novice looks at a bridge and sees a nice bridge. An engineer, however, looks at the same bridge and he sees the hairline crack nobody else noticed. That's what makes him the big expert, because he was the one person who caught the flaw. And it's not snobbery, it's actual expertise, and it's earned. But watch what happens when that true rule gets flipped inside out. If finding flaws proves you're an expert, then people start reaching for a shortcut. Instead of becoming an expert and then finding flaws, they just start finding flaws everywhere in order to look like an expert. And music is the softest possible target for this shortcut, because there's no inspector coming around to double-check your work. Now, if somebody claims a bridge is not safe and they're wrong, reality eventually embarrasses them. But if somebody claims a song is bad, well, who's checking? Nobody. The claim does all its own work for free, forever. Just make an unsupported claim and leave it up to everybody else to disprove it. Make them do the work. And if they don't have the skill and training to do the work, they'll just go along with it. Isn't there some famous phrase about how if you repeat a lie 1,000 times, it becomes the truth? And with the internet and social media, that 1,000 times is achieved remarkably fast. Which brings us back to a Canadian rock band that never asked for any of this in the first place. Poor old Nickelback. Now, you'd like to think adults grow out of the cafeteria. I used to think that myself. 42 years of watching grown people talk about music has convinced me otherwise. Nobody grows out of that junior high cafeteria. We just moved it online and gave it a comment section. I've met 50 and 60-year-olds, men and women who ought to know better, who will not admit to liking a song in a group text until they've quietly checked which way the group is leaning. Same fear, same posture, same kid just 40 years later and with better clothes. I mean, ask around, ask anybody, why is Nickelback bad? And watch what you get back. I mean, you'll get a joke, you'll get a meme, you'll get a reference to a joke about a meme. What you will almost never get is an actual musical sentence. Nothing about the songwriting, the vocal tone, the guitar mix, none of it. And that's the tell. That's how you know you're not looking at a critical judgment. You're just looking at a repeated citation. Somebody isn't reporting what they heard. They're reporting what everybody already agreed to say. And once a joke like that goes viral, it stops being about the band entirely. Disliking Nickelback becomes its own reward. You get to be in on something. You get the wink, the nod, the shared eye roll, all without ever having to sit still and actually listen to a Nickelback song and form an opinion of your own. See, that's a much easier trophy to win than real musical judgment, and it comes with no risk. And before you decide this is just a Nickelback problem, something about that one band that maybe possibly deserves it, let me hand you a second exhibit. Ask the internet the worst Beatles song of all time, and an awful lot of people will hand you the exact same answer without blinking. The song Hey Bulldog. I love Hey Bulldog. I think it kicks ass. The bass line alone should end the conversation. And I've never once heard anybody explain what's supposedly wrong with it. I've only heard people repeat that it's the answer, the way you'd repeat a state capital on a quiz. And think about what that actually proves. If the same reflexive, unexamined verdict can attach itself to Nickelback and to the Beatles, a band so beloved they're practically furniture in the history of music, then the verdict was never about the quality of the song in the first place. It was about the internet finding something to agree on. The song is just what got voted off the island. So when I tell a room full of 20-year-olds that I genuinely like Nickelback, I'm not being contrarian just for sport. I'm just refusing to accept a verdict that I was never shown the evidence for. And the stunned look on their faces, well, that's not them disagreeing with me. That's them realizing they've never seen an adult they respect hold a minority opinion about music and not flinch. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show, and we'll be right back.
What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show, and I tell you what, Mary Mac could play behind a band everybody claims to hate and still make it sound like the most respectable thing on the radio. That's not an easy trick. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. On an administrative note here, I need to point out that Spotify forced me to remove episode 60 of The Tom Daniels Show about the song Streets of Laredo, which first aired in March of 2026. In that episode, I used a fraction of a 1928 recording of St. James Infirmary by Louis Armstrong to demonstrate how they were essentially the same songs. Spotify determined that it was a copyright violation and I had to take down the episode. My other option was to have Spotify cancel the entire podcast. Their playground, their rules. Now, we've been talking about Nickelback, and let me tell you what another Canadian thinks about it. There's a Canadian composer named R. Murray Schafer who spent his whole career worrying about something most people never think about at all: whether we've actually stopped listening to the world around us. He's the reason we even have the word soundscape. His argument, more or less, was that most people let their sonic environment become wallpaper, noise that they've stopped hearing because they've really stopped paying attention. But Schafer said something about musical taste specifically that I think solves the puzzle that we've been circling this whole episode. Somebody once told him the two most important ingredients in developing good taste were sensitivity and intelligence. Schafer disagreed. He said he'd rather call it curiosity and courage. Curiosity to go looking for the new and the hidden, and courage to develop your own taste regardless of what anybody else thinks about it. So sit with that for a second, because it reframes everything we've talked about today. Curiosity and courage. Not one, both of them. The kid in the cafeteria who can't tolerate a friend liking the wrong band? Well, that's a courage failure. He's letting somebody else's opinion set the boundary of what's allowed. The guy repeating a Nickelback joke he'd never once tested against his own ears? Well, that's a curiosity failure. He skipped the part where you actually go looking and jumped straight to the verdict everybody already agreed on. Two different failures, same result. A person who thinks they have a taste in music when what they actually have is a subscription to somebody else's ears. Now I've got to turn this lens back on myself because it's only fair and because this is the part that actually keeps me up some nights. Well, no, not really. I drop off to sleep instantly, sleep like a log. When you get the point. Anyway, I've spent 42 years in classrooms, rehearsal halls, lecture halls, doing the one thing a music teacher is supposed to do: play musical examples. I play a piece to show you what a suspended chord does to your ear. I play a piece to show you what happens when a form repeats one time too many. That's my job. That's the whole method. But here's the problem nobody warned you about when you start teaching. The moment you play something as an example, you've done more than illustrate the point, you've stamped it. Standing in front of a room carries weight whether you want it to or not, and a student can't always separate, he played this to show us a technique, and he played this because it's excellent music. So let me give you a simple and stupid example. In music theory, I usually play the opening of the song Pinball Wizard on guitar to show students the sound of a suspended chord. Here's what that sounds like. Could you hear it? And then for the remainder of the school year, I will hear students in the practice rooms, the hallways, the break rooms, the parking lot, everywhere, either playing or listening to Pinball Wizard. There is no way on earth they would have found that song on their own. I did that. That's a scary power. And by the way, the song Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol uses the same effect in its opening riff, but it's just not as prominent as Pinball Wizard. That doesn't make Pinball Wizard a better song. It's just a better demonstration example. All right, here's another example. The most effective song I know that features a minor seventh chord with a major seventh on top, which is really a rare chord, is the old Rodgers and Hart standard, My Funny Valentine. Here's what that sounds like. The second chord you hear is the minor major seventh chord. And I'll play the progression twice. So you can guess how this plays out on campus. I show them the song in class to demonstrate that one chord. And suddenly, a 90-year-old song is on everybody's playlist. Now, to be fair, the same chord does appear in Stairway to Heaven and Michelle by the Beatles, but it's a better demonstration example in My Funny Valentine. So here's my honest answer, and it's not a tidy one. I don't know how to hand out a musical example to my students without my own fingerprints all over the thing. I've tried framing it carefully. I've tried saying, I'm playing Dock of the Bay so you can hear the bridge. And some of that helps, but none of it fully solves it. Influence might just be the tax I have to pay for being trusted enough to teach in the first place. It'll just always worry me that someone will walk out of a room claiming to like something they really don't like simply because I played it, and they think of that as some kind of endorsement. So if I can't hand you an opinion without some of it rubbing off, here's what I can hand you instead. Not an opinion, 2 habits. Curiosity first. Go looking. Actually listen to the song before you decide what everybody already told you to think about it. That's the whole method. It costs you nothing but an extra 30 seconds. Courage second. Once you've listened and you've landed somewhere the internet hasn't landed, hold on to it. Out loud if you can manage it, especially if you can manage it. Because here's the trade I'd make. I'd rather you leave this show loving a song I can't stand for reasons you went and found yourself than leave it loving a song I love for no reason at all except that I loved it first. That's the difference between taste and inheritance. One of them is yours. The other one just moved in and lives in your head rent-free. So the next time somebody tells you a song is bad, ask them the only question that matters. Not, oh, is it cool to like this? Just, why? Ask them why it's bad. Make them show their curiosity, and then go find your own. And if the honest answer is that you like it, and you can't fully explain why yet, and nobody in the room agrees with you, that's not a problem that you have to fix. That is curiosity and courage showing up right on schedule. Your ears were doing the job long before anybody's opinion showed up to grade them. Now, before I let you go, I want to do something this episode hasn't done yet. I want to let the whipping boy talk here. Because here's the thing nobody in that comment section ever stops to ask. Has anybody ever actually asked Nickelback how it feels to be the internet's punching bag for 20 years? Well, it turns out yes, repeatedly. And their answer changed over time, which is the part that I find most interesting. For years, frontman Chad Kroeger's line was that nobody could out-joke them on themselves. That whatever the internet dished out, the band had already said worse about themselves on the tour bus. But then later on, he started reframing the hate as something closer to useful. His argument was that all those other bands who came up in the same era, the ones nobody bothered to mock, mostly just disappeared. Nickelback didn't. He suggested the hate is part of why they stuck around. But now more recently, and this is the part that really surprised me, Kroeger said something quieter. He told an Arizona radio station a few years back that the hate has genuinely softened over time, that it's been nice to not be public enemy number one anymore. He even said that when there's a band he personally can't stand, he will not go online and pile on with everybody else. He just changes the channel. And then there's his big brother and bandmate, bassist Mike Kroeger, who gave the most honest answer of anybody in this whole story. when he was asked flat out how the hate felt, he didn't reach for a joke or a comeback or a one-liner. He just said it hurt. I mean, it hurt their feelings, which is, of course, exactly what anybody would feel if the whole internet spent 2 decades deciding that you were a punchline. There's even a documentary made about it a couple of years back called Hate to Love Nickelback, a chance in their words to finally tell their own version after turning the other cheek for 20 years. So here's the closing thought I want to leave you with on top of everything else we've talked about today. Each time somebody repeats a joke about a band they've never actually listened to, there's a real bass player somewhere who remembers what it felt like the first time it stopped being funny. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening. Keep learning.